How's it going, Chicago? Good. Okay, that was like the pre-lunch woo. I understand. Yeah, there's like no news going on, so Elizabeth unfortunately can't be with us.
There's nothing to report on.
Nothing going on at CNN right now. But we wish she was here. It's good to see you, Colton. It's good to be here with all of you. My name is Brandon Wolf. My pronouns are he, him. I currently serve as the National Press Secretary at the Human Rights Campaign, and I'm here with my friend Colton.
Yeah, my name is Colton Underwood. I'm an executive producer, an author, and TV personality. And I started my own foundation in 2015, originally for cystic fibrosis, but currently now run it for mental health for student athletes.
Amazing, amazing work. Okay, so let's dive in. And I wonder, some people are familiar with a bit of your journey.
Yes.
They may have seen parts of it on TV, but I wonder if you can talk about your journey. What are the things you're currently working on? What are you passionate about right now?
Yeah, so I grew up actually 2.5, 3 hours south of here in a small town called Washington, Illinois. I had an amazing childhood. I played sports throughout high school and was lucky enough to get a scholarship to play football at Illinois State University. After my college career, I went undrafted in 2014 to the San Diego Chargers and spent 3 years sort of spinning my tires on practice squads and playing football. As a little kid, that was always a goal of mine, and to be able to contribute to a team was a dream come true. In 2017, I retired due to a mix of just burnout and a shoulder injury. And I sort of joked with my family and my team, and I said, I just want to take like a year off. And that year off led me into this small little show called The Bachelor. And it changed my life, and I had, zero expectations going into it, and I found myself really loving the entertainment landscape. Mostly behind the camera. I know that might seem hard to believe because I've been in front of it pretty much my entire career. But fast forward to 2020 during the pandemic, and I faced the hardest year of my life. I was consumed by anxiety and depression, and what I realized was COVID made me sort of sit still. I couldn't run from myself anymore. I couldn't run from my sexuality. So I went on a coming out journey in 2020. I ended up documenting it with Netflix called Coming Out Colton, and soon after that I met my husband, and we've been together for 3 years, married for 1, and we are expecting a baby this fall. So very exciting stuff, yeah. But my passions go way beyond sports and athletics and entertainment. I'm doing a lot of work right now in Washington, D.C., advocating for a bipartisan bill called the TEAMS Act that my foundation introduced that will give resources to college athletes to use for their mental health. So there's I have a lot of optimism and a lot of hope for the work that we're doing.
That's amazing. I can tell by some of the awns that is news for people in this room. They did not know you were expecting, so congratulations.
Thank you. I want to throw the question back to you, too. I know, obviously, as a supporter and somebody who's attended a lot of human rights campaign events, would love to hear more about your story, what your role is in human rights, and some of the work that you guys are doing.
Yeah, thank you. So, yes, I currently serve as National Press Secretary at the Human Rights Campaign. We are the country's largest LGBTQ+ civil rights organization. But in truth, this is really new to me. The world of advocacy, the world of activism, the fight for a better future, all of it is still very new to me. Until 2016, I was just a queer black kid trying to find a place to belong in the world. I grew up in rural Oregon. You can imagine what that was like for me. I moved to Florida when I was 19 years old. I did what any good young person does, dropped out of college and announced to my parents I would be going to work for Walt Disney World. I was like, if there's anywhere I can be really gay, it's got to be Disney, right? And I was very gay at Walt Disney World. So I moved across the country at age 19. I was working at Disney. I was working at Starbucks. I stumbled across this sense of normal that I didn't know people like us would ever get to experience. And so, again, until 2016, I thought my only job was to live that slice of normal. And then on a June night that year, I did the most normal thing. I went and got a drink with my best friends, Drew and Juan, at our neighborhood bar, Pulse Nightclub. And in an instant, my normal life, the thing that I'd been looking for, became this global tragedy. And it also became very clear to me in that moment that it wasn't enough to just be normal. It wasn't enough to just live, just exist. I had to go out and fight for the next generation to be able to do the same thing. So I'm very honored to work at the Human Rights Campaign. My team leads all of our political communications efforts, and I tell people I get to make sure that anytime our issues are in conversation, that our stories are being told in those places. Proud to do it.
Incredible.
Okay, so let's talk more about media, entertainment. You're someone who's deeply ingrained in popular culture, television, sports, all of it. I wonder if you can talk quickly about how do you feel like the media ecosystem, is affecting LGBTQ plus young people, is helping to shape how we talk about LGBTQ plus young people. Are you optimistic, or do you think we have challenges in the media space?
I definitely think we have challenges. Naturally, I'm a very optimistic person. I love manifesting. I love seeing the silver linings in things, and including my own journey. I had to go on the path that I had to go on to get to where I am today. And of course, I could always admit that I could have handled things and done things different and better, but my experiences have led me down this path and now have provided me an opportunity to not only share my story, but to help represent part of our community. And I think that was always a challenge for me, is figuring out where do I fit in. When I was first coming out, I was extremely nervous because I didn't see a lane for me in the LGBTQ plus community. I didn't really know where I was going to represent, who I was going to talk with, and just what my place was. And I really ran from wanting to be a leader in the space. Just because I had a documentary out did not qualify me, in my opinion. So I've spent the last 3 years doing a lot of work and figuring out where I belong. And now everything that I touch, business-wise, production-wise, show-wise, I always ask myself the question, does this bridge our country? And I think that's the important role for me, is I want to put content out, I want to put shows out, I want to contribute to our media in a way that helps bring people together. I think the reason why I'm optimistic is, while there are a lot of loud voices out there, especially on social media, we always sort of focus and hone in on those hot topic and the comments and how nasty it is, without zooming out to realize it's a small portion of people. So that's where my optimism comes from, is I think it's so easy to get in it once you see that, but it's only a few hundred, few thousand people, and you're talking about millions of people engaging online. For me, my responsibility in the production and the work that I'm doing is to continue to message to towns that I'm a part of that do not have accurate and not accurate, but diversity in the way that large cities do, is to continue just to represent minorities and minority groups and to continue to uplift their voices in the content that I put out.
Yeah, it's so important to tell the stories right now.
Exactly. And I would like to ask you too, with the work you're doing at the HRC, what are some of the advocacy and some of the legal and behind the scenes in politics that's working right now, and also just the current climate of our political system and LGBTQ plus bills that are harmful? Yeah.
Well, this is going to come as a shock to people. Things are hard in Washington, D.C. right now. There's not a whole lot that gets done. But I do think there are some things that are working. So you named the current climate. Last year, around this time, the Human Rights Campaign, for the first time in our history, declared a national state of emergency for LGBTQ plus people. That was really a way to articulate the raft of hateful legislation and violent rhetoric that was being lobbed, especially at young people. We saw over 600 pieces of anti-LGBTQ plus legislation filed in state legislatures last year. We're at something like 485 already this year, and it's only June. And so I say all of that because the climate is really difficult, and it concerns me most how that impacts young people. Because I remember what it was like. I'm going to age myself a little bit here. I remember what it was like to be in high school when my home state of Oregon banned same-sex marriage by constitutional amendment. I know what it felt like to hear the rhetoric, to see the way people were treating people that loved like me. It was really hard. But at the same time, I also see things that are working. I see, some of the things we're able to do behind the scenes to take federal action to protect people from harm. I see things like the Human Rights Campaign Foundation's Welcoming Schools program. that is in school districts across the country, helping to create an inclusive, anti-bullying environment that lets queer kids know that they are loved exactly as they are, that they are perfect exactly as they are. I see important community networks providing resources to young people who need access to healthcare, who may have had it challenged or cut off because of legislation. And thanks to all of you, I see us shifting the way we're talking about people. I see us having different kinds of conversations. 10 or 15 years ago, not many people knew a trans person. Now we're having real conversations about how to make sure our spaces are inclusive of trans people. So all of you in the work that you're doing every day are really helping us to shift the narrative nationwide.
Totally, and you hit on something that I want to get into just a little bit because I know it's a passion of both of ours, is the youth mental health crisis. And I know social media contributes to that, but what specifically is HRC doing to help contribute to combating the youth mental health crisis?
It's a huge problem, and especially for LGBTQ plus young people who are disproportionately impacted by depression, anxiety, by suicidality. But I'm going to give you a number, a data point that will help, I think, to underscore all the work that we're doing. Young people report that the presence of a safe space, whether it's at school or at home, the presence of a safe space with someone telling them you are perfect exactly as you are, that cuts the attempted suicide rate in half in LGBTQ plus young people. So it's all about creating spaces for those kids to be authentically themselves. That is the primary focus of our work around LGBTQ plus youth. It's about making sure schools are safe for them. It's about helping parents create safe and inclusive environments in their homes. It's about making sure that when kids go out into their communities, they are surrounded by love, they are affirmed, they're lifted up, and they're told they can be anything they want to be.
Totally. I want to say this too, during the month of June, obviously, with it being Pride, I know a lot of brands and companies love to support and join in. And one thing that I've been looking for this month as I'm getting approached by companies to either speak or to share my story or to share their products on social media or whatever it might be, is I always challenge them to find an organization in the LGBTQ plus community to support on a year-round basis. And I think it's just important to really take a step back and understand that these issues don't go away after the month of June, and that fundraising and giving isn't only a once a year type thing. For organizations like HRC or PFLAG or the Trevor Project or so many just incredible organizations out there. So that's one thing that I think people should continue to consider when they align themselves with different nonprofits.
Yeah, 100%. Please support the organizations that are doing good work, especially folks like you. Be courageously curious about the world around you. It's easy to be curious about the things you already know and understand. It's harder to be curious about the things that you don't. I challenge everybody to be courageously curious, especially in the workplace. Set inclusive tables, invite people to that table, and let's challenge each other to do more outside of Pride Month. That's one moment for us to have these conversations, but that the work continues 365. Before we go, I have one final question, and I want to end on a hopeful note. I always like to end on a hopeful note. I know you broke the news that you are expecting, and so some of your work, not just mental health for LGBTQ plus young people, not just in the sports realm, but you've also done some work around mental health for LGBTQ plus folks in the parenting journey. Can you talk about what that's looked like for you and some of the work you're doing in that space?
Yeah, totally. So when I first went on this journey of how to become a parent after I came out, realizing that I always wanted to be a dad, and that was something that kept me in the closet, along with my faith and being an athlete. I was lost, and I realized there wasn't a lot of people speaking out on different paths to parenthood. I never thought that I would host a podcast. I just thought it was a bad idea from the beginning. And I really found my path with the podcast that I launched called Daddyhood, and it explains the fertility journey. And it's not only for queer people. It just humanizes an issue of IVF and surrogacy and all of the incredible and important decisions people have to make to grow their family. So I've been doing a lot of work and sort of just the word that I use is humanize. Humanize this experience for people because it is very isolating, it is very lonely, especially for the women out there. The work that I've done, I've realized our society and a lot of people put a lot of pressure and the blame of fertility on women, when in fact, I think we all know it takes two to tango, and men, we are the problem as well. So I'm really proud to represent not only the dads out there, but being in a same-sex relationship and having my husband and representing a two-dad household, I feel like is sort of another calling of mine.
It's beautiful. I think we can all agree that telling these stories matters. It really matters that you are telling your story. So I want to thank you for telling yours. I want to challenge everyone to tell these stories, to amplify these stories. When we do that, we create spaces where young people know that they're loved and valued, and we already know that saves lives. So I'm grateful to share space with you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing the stage. Thank you all.
Thank you.